Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. And on behalf of Monsignor Jerry McGrath, our pastor, who's not able to be here, he really wanted to be here this afternoon. But on behalf of Monsignor Jerry, I'd like to welcome Sushil Kumar with the Small Business Administration. And he's going to offer some information and hopefully answer some of the questions that we may have. So let's welcome Mr. Kumar. Okay.
Thanks for having me, Flynn. Thanks for being here on a Sunday afternoon. Let me start off by asking all of you, what questions do you have burning in your mind so that I can answer those questions as I go along my presentation? Let's start with you. Questions that you might have about the program.
FEMA even before you apply for SBA. So is that true? Do you have to wait until you hear from FEMA?
Incorrect.
Okay.
So I'll cover the process at the same time. But
okay.
Thanks for your question. How about you?
I'm here.
Fair enough. What kind of questions does your family have about the SBA?
Our main question was the interest rate. I've heard different interest rates. I thought it was 1.99%, but I've heard as high as 10.
Wow, okay. We'll correct that fairly quickly. It's a fixed interest rate, 1.75%, amortizations up to 30 years, no fees, no points, no closing costs, and your first payment is due a year from now. There is no program with the Small Business Administration where the interest rates are the numbers that you've mentioned. Okay, fair enough. We'll cover the two criterion that we need to go through. Ma'am, question for you.
That was the same thing. Yeah.
Same question, interest rate. How about you, ma'am? Fair enough. How about you? No questions asked. Thank you for being here. Yes, sir.
Yes, we were approved an SBA loan. We had filed with FEMA first, and once FEMA found out that we were approved, they cut us off, so we couldn't have both.
Interesting. Fair enough. I'll cover that in a second. Fair enough, some details might be there. Same question or something different?
She can't hear.
Oh, okay.
If you're gonna talk, speak up.
Fair enough. I'll speak a little louder. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I've never been accused of a library voice, but I'll speak up louder.
What I want to know is we did sign up for FEMA, okay?
Right.
And we are supposed to be getting an inspector to come out. When, I don't know. I hope we can hear him at the door or whatever,
Fair enough.
because my husband doesn't hear either.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I'll speak louder and make sure we cover your ground. Yes, ma'am. What kind of questions do you have?
Well, I was going to ask if we got approved from FEMA, could we also get this help from you?
Yes, as this gentleman is pointing out, there's some sort of quagmire going on, but the short answer is FEMA programs have nothing to do with the SBA, except for the home repairs piece. If there is funds being used for home repairs and FEMA lends you money, the Small Business Administration might come back and say, we'll pay that down from the portion of the loan that was approved. I don't know if that's the case with you or not, but we'll go through it. There's a very small line because FEMA's role is to return the homeowner and the renter safe, sanitary, secure condition in the short term. SBA's role is long-term recovery. Okay, so the two have different roles to perform. They rarely, if ever, overlap. The system was set up in such a manner that one without the other doesn't mean anything, so it's together that will return the community back to its rightful state. Yes, ma'am.
A lot of people would not live in a house like I have. It was built before 1950, no central air, no central heat, nothing like that.
Okay.
Now for Hurricane Ike we applied, never heard anything. And basically it's the same thing that has happened again, apparently at any rate. The under part of the house got wet. And as time progressed, The floors were what I call quicksand floors. You take a step and your foot goes down.
Right.
Thank God for the linoleum holding you up. And so we just finished paying for that. And now this hurricane comes along. And as far as I can tell, the inside looks fine, just like it did for Hurricane Ike. But the underside is what I'm afraid is going to be the same thing happening again.
Well, that's where the inspector comes in. The inspection process documents what takes place. Do you have flood insurance, perhaps?
No, we have no insurance.
Okay. So my line of sharing with you was going to say that FEMA will send their inspector, so will the Small Business Administration. So all of my answering questions will have to do with the Small Business Administration. I cannot answer any questions about FEMA because I don't work for them, but I will share information with you as to what I do know where FEMA and SBA overlap. Okay? Where FEMA and SBA overlap, come together. Okay, because FEMA works by themselves, SBA works by themselves, and there are few areas where we work together.
See, like when I go up to get the status, I go as far as putting in the name and the address where you live. But then they want to know where's the damaged house. Well, it's the same address. And it stops right there. It won't let me pass that point.
We'll find a way to get a FEMA representative to get a hold of you, or have you visit the Disaster Recovery Center and speak to someone where you get the answers. Because they usually don't make any outbound phone calls, but we'll see what we can do to have them talk with you at the Disaster Recovery Center, and we'll work something out. We will work something out.
Thank you.
Hi there.
I was wondering what procedure do we have to do, because we did file for FEMA, but we haven't heard anything. I have a claims number.
Okay.
So what is the procedure for that, and do we wait for that? How long does it take
Fair
for
enough.
us to do it?
Fair enough. Sir, any questions? Up front?
My mother is, for her house, FEMA came and of course there was no damage on the inside the house. The problem is that the water did get to the windowsills, so there's damage like at the windowsills outside, and the garage and the foundation of the driveway has split all the way down. So is that something like with the small business she could probably get help with on something like that? Because FEMA already came, and I guess because the inside of the house was not damaged, they denied her, but she has no homeowner's insurance and there's foundation issues around the house.
Okay, fair enough. So a lot of the questions that have been posed so far is within the framework of what I'm presenting to you folks this afternoon. So let me start off by saying I'm Sushil Kumar. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Small Business Administration. And I'm here to talk about how FEMA and SBA work together, and most importantly, what the SBA process involves, okay? So the very first step anyone does is to register with FEMA. Get a nine-digit registration number, and they're referred over to the SBA. So if you folks could visualize 3 pots of money. Let me back up one quick second. If anybody had a National Flood Insurance Plan program, and you had a policy with them, and they pay you in full, you don't need the FEMA or SBA, because the program is built to pay you in full when the claims process goes through. That brings the question, underinsured, uninsured. The numbers are about 84%, give or take, uninsured. About 16% of the population is insured. So that's where FEMA and SBA come together hand in hand to help out. Once you are registered with FEMA, you come over to the SBA. In about 10 to 12 business days, an inspector calls, visits, and benchmarks the actual value of your damages. So for example, Flint, let's use you as an example. You registered, you applied. You have a ballpark figure in your head as to what those numbers are for estimated losses, right? The loss verifier comes out and sees you, talks with you, and talks about your personal property losses. Your cars, your living room, your bedroom, your refrigerator, your, everything personal property related, your watches, your jewelry, things along those lines. The maximum that the SBA will lend is $40,000. against personal property for either renter or homeowner. Let's take the example that you're a homeowner now. Then they'll visit with you and make sure you own the home. They'll make sure that they document the damages to your home. They'll take pictures. They'll write a report. That report is your appraisal that gets sent to Dallas for underwriting. A few days after that, somebody will call you from Dallas-Fort Worth saying, by the way, Flint, you're approved for $40,000 for personal property, $200,000 for your home, assuming that you had those dollars worth of damages. Again, no money is shared over and above your actual damages. So, in case of Flint, let's say your actual damages was $20,000. That's all they'll give you out, it's $20,000. If you have $40,000 worth of damage, then you get the full amount. This is not a program whereby they give you money to get ahead. They give you money, you earn that money, you qualify for that money based on your actual losses. And I use the word give, okay? You have to qualify for that money. This is not a handout. This is something you qualify through your cash flow, through your income, and proper credit repayment history, okay? Then they'll talk about interest rates. 1.75% fixed. A draw period of 6 months. In other words, you can take money out over a 6-month time frame and let things settle out, because right about now, there's a high demand for labor and materials. So to make sure that you don't pay high dollars, you may want to wait, but with all the destruction, the choice is yours. But it's there for peace of mind purposes and for insurance settling out and things along those lines, okay? Once you accept the terms, funding is fairly quick. So start to finish, from the time you apply to the time you get funds, is 30 business days. For nonprofits, it's 2.5%. Churches, schools, anyone that's a 501c3. Any business owners here? Any private nonprofits here? Okay, you're a private nonprofit or a business? And for businesses, it's 3.3% fixed. Okay? FEMA does not have a program at all for businesses. They don't help businesses. There is an administrative desire to have businesses and private nonprofits be registered, but short of that, there is no program that FEMA offers for the small business owner. If you have been turned down by the SBA, I took an example of Flint getting approved. Now let's say Flint got turned down. You'll get a letter in the mail that says you were turned down. That is the basis of you going into Pot 3. Pot 1, FEMA, short-term grants. Pot number 2, the SBA. Low interest rate disaster loans. But to get to door number 3 or pot number 3, you got to go through door number 2. So if folks are out there saying that they don't qualify for these loans, the process will document the absence of cash flow or anything else that the borrower feels, the affected party feels is their issue, whether they be delinquent credit or anything else. Most of the denials are based on lack of cash flow. People don't make enough money. So unfortunately, there are some people that we can't possibly help, in which case we refer them back to FEMA with a letter, and they have an other needs assistance. It's called affectionately ONA. And so to get to ONA, you got to go to the SBA. Okay, so that pretty much is the process per se. Okay, so did you register and apply? I think I understood you to say you applied, correct? How long has it been since you applied? So you're about 4 or 5 days after the declaration? Oh, 4 or 5 days before. After the storm. So you're looking at right around, what, the 5th, 6th of September? Give or take. So you're right about that time frame where you'll get a phone call. Or somebody will say, hey, we're coming out to see you. And by the way, the loss verifier is not going to ask you for any personal information. They'll say, Flint, I'm coming out to 700 Jefferson Street. Is that the address that was damaged? Yes, that was when that was damaged. What time do you have for me as an appointment? 10:30. I'll see you there. End of discussion. No social security number exchanged, no monies exchanged, no personal information exchange. It's pretty straightforward. I'm coming to see you. This is your address. Are you going to be there this time? That's it. Just to give you an idea, 843,000 applications so far for FEMA registrations. It's taking time. And to put it all also into perspective, IRMA's got nothing to do with us, but Irma is at about 1.2 million registrations. And that's not even counting Maria. So we're talking about a huge time frame for people to come out and see. And patience is probably not the right set of words to use, is adding insult to injury. But unfortunately or fortunately, that's what's, I'm not going to say required, but an exercise in patience is probably best to decompress because it's taken a while. I just want to put it out there because don't want to manage expectations by saying, oh yeah, they'll be there, and then they don't show up. Okay? So let me start off with you, sir. We covered the interest rate for you, and there is no 10% interest rate. I don't know who, and yeah. Yeah, that's, so there are two categories of interest rates, and I'll discuss that for the purposes of openness, okay? There are folks in this world who have the necessary resources to recover from almost anything. For those folks who can get monies from the banks called credit elsewhere, they don't need the subsidy. And for those folks, the interest rate is 3.5% instead of 1.75. So there's only two sets of interest rates for homeowners and renters, 1.75 and 3.5. And 92% of all loans are approved at the lower number. And you have appeal rights too. If you get approved at 3.5 and you think you belong in 1.75, you have appeal rights. So when the underwriter calls you and talks to you and they offers you the higher rate, ask them why. Okay? Your question had to do with?
What I had heard is that you need to wait.
Okay.
FEMA.
Yeah. Her question was, she was told that she had to wait for FEMA. Answer is no. Register with FEMA, apply with SBA. The process concurrently works. This is on a different track, this is on a different track, and they seldom come together, if you could visualize a railroad. Two separate tracks, so you don't have to wait. I would suggest that if you haven't applied yet, that you do apply, because tick-tock, October 24th is coming by. Okay, so as long as your application is in by October 24th, you're good to go. Okay? Your question had to do the same thing with here. You didn't have a question, you had a question, right? And remind me of the question. Hi there. Homeowners, renters, most private nonprofits, and businesses of all sizes is my audience that I'm presenting the program to. Hurricane Harvey's declaration date was right around the 25th of August. As long as your damages were incurred from the 25th of August to the 15th of September, Category 1 for eligibility. Category 2, you had to be in the county where the damages took place. 3, your personal residence, your personal automobiles are eligible. Secondary homes are not considered eligible. ATVs, recreation vehicles, are not considered eligible. The rest of it, you have to go through the process to figure out whether or not your repayment is there to repay the unmet disaster needs, and the rest of it is through the process. But the ones that I mentioned up front is the physical requirements that a homeowner, renter, or private nonprofit or business has to go through to figure out if they're there. So if somebody in San Antonio, no, because San Antonio was outside the periphery. Amarillo, Dallas-Fort Worth, they weren't part of that. There are very specific counties that were affected. So you have to be in that declaration area. So that's the initial premise of eligibility. Okay? You had a question, sir. Did you? No, I didn't think you did. Okay. Your question had to do with also with FEMA and something, oh, your damages, correct? Okay. The damages are, they come out, they demonstrate themselves as a result of inspection. So underneath the house, what have you. Someone's going to actually go underneath the house to figure out what the damages are. And remind me of the question so that I completely answer the question.
The guy came out, he inspected the house. And he
Speaking just so I can hear you.
He mostly did the inside of the house.
Right.
And like I said, what the problem was, the water came up to the window sills. The house has low window sills. It got the window sills on the outside of the house, and and the outside garage. The stuff that was in the garage all got damaged.
Okay.
Okay. And like I said, she got a letter back saying that I guess the inside, that she got denied because of that.
Okay.
Now, what you're saying with the loan, when you get denied from FEMA, does that kick everything out? Or does it go, where does she go from here now? Because, you know, she does have, if you go outside in the garage, like I said, her freezer and everything she had in the garage are gone. The garage itself, the foundation split right down the middle, the driveway dipped down in the out. So her damages to her house is on the outside of it.
Okay.
And so,
So the gentleman's got a couple of different moving parts here, so let me parse that out. As I mentioned early on, if you had an NFIP, National Flood Insurance Policy, they pay you in full, okay? And you don't need FEMA or SBA. But while the determination process is happening over here at NFIP, FEMA and SBA will deny you because this is not final. But as long as you've applied, you're in the system. So reasons for FEMA denial, you'll have to talk to them and ask them, why did you deny me? The fact that you were damaged on the inside is not a reason for a turn down. So ask the question, what was specifically the reason for my turn down? They'll tell you what it is, or in this case, your family member. Most of the times your turn down is because of this final determination letter, because we don't duplicate benefits. So hypothetically, if you have $100,000 worth of damage and your claim was $100,000, you have no disaster unmet needs. Zero. But if they only pay you $80,000, there's sums of money, the $20,000 that you got to get from somewhere. That's where the inspection process comes in, that's where the benchmark comes in, and that's what you qualify for a cash flow. So I would suggest go to the Disaster Recovery Center here in Goodwill Shopping Center and ask them the operative question, why was I turned down? And move forward. And did I hear you say that you did apply for the SBA? Did I hear you say that you applied for the Small Business Administration loan?
no, I didn't. That's what I was asking. So when you apply for FEMA, does that apply for both of them, or you also got to apply for the second one?
If you apply for FEMA, it's only FEMA.
It's only FEMA, okay.
And now you have to physically apply for the SBA. So that's a good point. A lot of folks make the assumption that it's when you apply with FEMA, somehow it automatically goes over to the SBA. It does not. You have to actually apply. You can apply online if you're savvy enough. If you want to go see somebody, you can talk to them and say, guess what? I want you to help me fill out the application, because that's what they do. It eliminates the shock and awe, if you will, and makes people wonder, what do I do here? There's someone there that actually fills out the application. So my suggestion, go in there. They're open from 12 to 5 today. Have the application filled out. Sunday's a little slower too. Goodwill Shopping Center, 3871 Staggs Drive. All right, so if you would go out there and take care of the rest, it's a fairly comprehensive process. I think I covered you, and your question had to do with? Right, one has nothing to do with the other. One has nothing to do with the other, correct.
Okay.
Right, so you can apply here and get funds here. You apply here and potentially get funds here. And if you don't qualify with pot number 2, you're referred over to pot number 3, which is also FEMA and the state of Texas. Okay. Now coming to your question, sir. You said something about FEMA turned you down.
They told us that we didn't have enough damage in our house. I'm thinking 3 feet of water is pretty much.
Okay. Appeal.
We're
appeal.
doing it. We're doing that.
Okay. Because, do you have the letter with you, perhaps?
Actually, we probably do, but it's in the car.
It's in the car.
Yeah, we have everything.
I would love to take a look at it. I won't comment on it because I don't work for FEMA, but I could probably tell you what specifically to ask if it makes sense. If I'm able to decipher, first of all, because processes are so uniquely different, and I wouldn't want to step on their side of the aisle because they don't step on my side of the aisle, but I potentially might be able to do something. There are 3 more benefits with the SBA. Yes, sir. You had a question?
You have to have a social to apply.
Yes, sir. Correct. Citizen of the United States, Social Security number, so on and so forth. Yes, ma'am.
Can you be rejected on the basis of either too low of an annual income or too high?
Too low, yes. Too high, no.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My question was similar to hers. I have a friend who was turned down because she had just lost her job prior to the storm. However, she's on Social Security. So when you said cash flow, she does have an income.
Okay.
But could it be too low? Is that why she made
There
it
is a certain basic income level that you have to meet to have repayment. But she does have, on the SBA side, she does have a certain period of time, 6 months, to go back and say, hey, I got my job back, I got another job, would you please consider me or reconsider me? So there are reconsideration rights. Have her ask them what that is.
I have another question. It's probably because I didn't, we couldn't exactly hear. So the maximum is $40,000 that you
For
can get a
personal
loan
property.
for personal property. So that includes the house and the damages within,
The contents
the contents.
and cars and,
And
stuff
the
like
cars.
that.
So it's not-
$200,000 for homes.
So for the house, you'll go all the way to 200,000.
Correct.
And the contents is 40,000.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? That brings me into the next level 3 benefits that we have at the SBA that we want to talk about. Relocation, refinance, and mitigation money. On a case-by-case basis, when the underwriter called you, we'll use Flint as an example again. Flint, loans approved, this, and this, we talked about that. He then asks the question, do I qualify for relocation? I want to move from that side of the church to this side of the church because that side didn't flood. Hypothetically, right? Yeah, so. And they'll say, well, look into it. So on a case-by-case basis, a person can ask for relocation money. On a case-by-case basis, he could also ask whether he could qualify for refinance of his mortgage. And here are the conditions. He plans to reside there. He plans to repair the property. His property has had at least 40% destruction in insurable value or 50% of dwelling structure. And the sums of money he's seeking plus the value of his first mortgage is no more than $200,000. He potentially is now in the door for refinance. There are other conditions that apply that initially get you in the door. So you have to ask your underwriter, do I qualify for a mortgage refinance?
If you do qualify for refinance, is that what you say you get approved for the 1.75%
Yes.
interest rate? So
Yes.
your mortgage would then be 1.75?
You took the words out of my mouth. Why don't you come up here and say that with me together? So the new interest rate for those sums of money is 1.75%. So if your current interest rate is, let's say, 4.5%, which is the average rate, here yours could be higher. Let's benchmark it, 4.5%. Now your new interest rate is 1.75%. And oh, by the way, let me give you an example of a conversation I had with a gentleman about 2 days ago. Today's Sunday, right? Today's Sunday. On Friday, he called me up and he says, Sushil, I got a loan approved, $140,000. Congratulations. That gives me everything I need to refinance. But I've got a problem. What problem do you have? Because now I'm upside down in the house. Oh, that's a high quality problem to have because on Wednesday, you had no money to rebuild your home. Now you're qualified for $140,000 and now you're saying that you're upside down? Let me understand this correctly. Which position do you want to be in? He goes, I didn't think of it that way. And I said, fair enough. So let's just build on this. Holding everything else constant, let's say you have an average refund of $2,000. It's interest deductible. So next year your refund is $4,000 because you've got the exact same amount of money. With $136,000, you have a $2,000 refund. $140,000 probably will give you another $2,000, right? Mathematically. So hold that thought for a second. So you've got $4,000 over here. Your first payment is due a year from now. So your payment on $140,000 roughly is about $1,000, give or take. All right? So you don't make $1,000 worth of payments till next year. So that's $12,000. Oh, by the way, you have another $200 a month that you're going to save for the refinance. So if you were to take that out of the equation, you got 12 that you're saving because you don't make any payments, plus double the refund, $16,000, you'll pay this down fairly quickly. Oh, I didn't think of this. So before we go from I don't have any money for a home to my God, I'm upside down to oh my God, I'm going to walk away from my property, think it through. We're here to help. So that example was an example of we'll take collateral as needed. We're not looking to be in a first position. We can be in second position, advance you the funds. This is also an example of mortgage is 136, but they need another 140 to repair. Their home was completely destroyed, right? That's kind of the example. So 276, the numbers don't work. That's why we have a second lien. Okay. Last but not least, mitigation money. In this particular example where they had $140,000 worth of verified losses, 20% of that number is $28,000, correct? 140 times 20%. They can use that $28,000 for the following uses. Deductibles for insurance, fees that the city might have, or an appraiser might have, third-party fees, building a DERM, something that protects you in the future from having the same outcome, raising your home, things along those lines. 20% of the verified losses, potential refinance and potential relocation. All at 175, fixed, for up to 30 years. You could qualify in 20. He might need 15, I might need 30. She might get it done in 10, or vice versa. So no two people will have the same interest rate, have the same repayment, but will have the same interest rate, potentially. Because if she's well heeled enough, she might be at the 3.5 rate. She's fortunate enough she doesn't need the subsidy. What other questions are there? Yes, ma'am.
Saying that where we live, it was a no-flood zone, and we've never been flooded like that before. So a lot of people are saying that because they opened the gates or whatever it was, human error was what happened. So I heard that there's a lawsuit possibly that they might do. If we did receive that money from a lawsuit, would we still be eligible for this money, or would we have to pay that back?
A lot of hypotheticals there. I don't know anything about the lawsuit, so here's what I will say. Register with FEMA, apply with the SBA. And whatever happens outside of those two processes, let it happen. Because I can't comment on what might happen, what happens, and there's a lot of moving parts there. So stay pretty much focused on this part right here, register and apply, and then let the process work itself out. Sir?
Sorry I came in late, so you may
No
have
issue.
answered my question, but I have my home that I had flooded. I applied with FEMA, and I've actually gotten some assistance. But they've come in and inspected and did that kind of thing. My rental property was also flooded, but they told me at first that they didn't think much water got in, and as it turns out, more water than what they said, and I have to make repairs on that house. I didn't have insurance on the rental property. I have insurance on my property. So I'm going to need to apply for an SBA loan to repair my rental home.
That's correct.
Do I have to file for FEMA on the rental property before I file for the
No, sir.
SBA?
Businesses do not have to register with FEMA. It's nice if they do, but there is no requirement to get the doors open because there is no FEMA program to assist landlords or businesses of all sizes. On your primary home where you are living as an individual, yes, you do. So you need to register with FEMA to get the ball rolling.
Well, I did for myself, for my personal property, but I haven't registered for, and that's what I was asking was, do I still register with FEMA for the rental property or not?
The rental property, no.
No.
No. So now as a landlord, there are a couple of different things you can do. Avenues, I'll say. You've got the physical damages that you have assistance through the SBA. Also, the value of the lease. So if you had a tenant there and you had a 12-month lease, January through December, because of the flood in August, a few days after they left. So you can potentially apply for economic injury September, October, November, and December. You can ask for the value of that lease to be made whole. And potentially into the future if you think that you'll be vacant for a period of time. As long as you can cash flow based on your tax returns, potentially some of the monies are yours.
So I lost you some money here. So for the rental money you're talking about from the time the storm occurred till
Whenever the lease expires, correct.
And where am I getting that from? What am I doing with that? Asking for?
So let's say you're not getting rental income. $1,000 went out the window each month. So you can ask for a $4,000 economic injury loan to replace the value of the lease that you just lost from the SBA, along with your physical damages.
And here's a scenario, I've got to wait and find out from my insurance what flood insurance will pay for on my home. And then I have to pay out of pocket on the rental home. And I'm gonna need a loan for at least some of that, at least I know for the rental property.
Right, so back to your original premise. On your primary home, whatever insurance company pays you, minus what you need, you come to the SBA for. On the rental, you don't have any, so you'll have to come to us for the entirety. And then you can come to us for the value of the lease that you lost. So those are the three different pieces. And they'll ask you to provide evidence that you had no flood insurance on your rental. They'll ask you for evidence that your insurance has been paid to the amount that you were covered for, both from FEMA and from SBA, to see that the insurance is final, because we don't duplicate benefits.
Say once you're approved for the loan,
Yes, ma'am?
okay, and you have the work done, do you have to be very specific and save all the receipts and everything that, I know how the paperwork is and all.
So once, back to Flint as an example. Flint accepts a loan, there's a customized case manager that each person gets, and he too will get it. The first $25,000 is put into your account immediately, and after that is a percentage of completion. So Flint will talk to you as the contractor and say, will you please come by and inspect the property because the contractor is done. An SB inspector shows up, you offer them receipts, verify that the work is done, sign off on it. The next sum of money are then submitted to your account until all of your monies are used. If all the work is done and the money is not used, that portion you can request to be modified so that you don't pay the money that you don't have to. In other words, if you're approved for 100 and you got the work done for 80, at the end of it all, you can tell the case manager, by the way, please refinance or remodify my loan downwards to $80,000. So yes, receipts are important, percentage of completion, somebody inspects your property, and you will talk it through with your case manager. What other questions do we have? Yes, ma'am.
Is there an age limit on loans?
Against the law, cannot be, that's against age discrimination. Age, gender, so on and so forth, all the regular rules.
Now say it again so I can.
No.
There's no age limit.
No, there is no age limit. You made me laugh. Thank you for that.
My husband's 81, so I don't know how long we will live to pay it off.
Let me give you a personal story, if I may. I don't know if I shared this with Carolyn or not. We came from India in 1970. I came in 81. Grandpa came in 75. He bought his first home at age 76. He had the house paid by 87. So thank God there are no rules for ages, because Grandpa would never be a homeowner if that wasn't the case. Okay, so Grandma and Grandpa worked, we all chipped in, house was paid for, we had a huge celebration when it was all paid for, and we all said it was the greatest country on earth. So age is not necessarily a hindrance, it's a choice that we have in this great country of ours to say, I choose not to borrow versus you can't borrow. Huh? Sorry. What other questions do we have? Yes, sir.
That kind of gives me a question there too then. So say like my mom, she's elderly, and say she get a loan, right? And she has to pay it back. What happens if she passes away?
Legal question, ask your attorney. Okay?
I mean, as far as the loan, just at that point, you guys
It all depends on the structure of the loan. If she's by herself, if she's with somebody else, if it's a trust, there's so many moving parts. Ask your attorney.
Okay.
Generally speaking, it goes to probate. Generally speaking, it just goes unpaid. Generally speaking, there's all kinds of other moving parts. So let me not just give you one specific answer, because it's such a... What other questions could I entertain? Yes, sir.
So the storm has made my house into a condition where I'm going to demolish that house.
Okay.
It's just not worth it.
Okay.
But I can still provide or still apply for some assistance from the SBA based on that house?
Now, short answer is yes. Is it a choice you're making because the city condemned it, or the insurance company saying it? There'll be a lot of other parts. So before you take all those actions, you may want to consult an attorney, you want to consult your counselor or whatever else, and get the financing in place before you demolish, because if you're voluntarily doing it, the parameters are different. If you do it involuntarily, the parameters are different. So please make sure that you preserve your rights. Okay? Because same thing we have, if mortgage companies, I'm using that same vein of thought, if mortgage companies require this gentleman to pay off his loan, the underwriting for that is different than, oh, I've got a windfall, I'm going to pay it down. A lot of folks have found themselves in previous disasters where they got a lump sum money from the insurance company to pay off the mortgage, then they have no money to rebuild. So, case-by-case basis, ask the question, find out before you take action.
So going on that same line, should SBA see the property and the home before it's totaled so that they can assess it that way?
The example in his case, he applies, somebody comes out and sees it.
Before he totaled it.
Well, or he doesn't even share that with him, right? And then he talks to the loss verifier and he says, you know, I'm looking to destroy this property, I'm looking to gut it. He'll document that, and when the underwriter comes up and talks to him on the telephone, he shares it, then his options are then made available. Yes, you can do this, you can do, I mean, all kinds of doors open up, but I would suggest that he not destroy it unless the city says you will have to condemn it. In other words, before you take a particular course of action, consider all possible remedies before you take that action, and it becomes something that you can't undo. That's what I'm suggesting that you do, because every action has a consequence. So just be prudent and exercise that prudent logic and make sure you take the necessary steps to protect yourself. What other questions? Way in the back. Any questions back there? You're just waving from back there. Hi there. How are you? Yes, sir.
Much like something percent of people that don't have flood insurance, I don't have flood insurance on my house. I have windstorm, and I have applied for windstorm. If I get anything from windstorm, will that affect my chances of getting an SBA loan?
Probably not, but ask the question when you apply for the SBA.
I've already applied.
And you walk back in, or the phone number, 1-800-659-2955. Okay. Call them up and ask them and say, does damages from windstorm require me to pay down the loan? Because I'm at the SBA.
I'm at the process now where I'm waiting for
the phone call.
An appointment.
The verification. Yeah, the verification phone call from the inspector. Let him come out and see you, right. And then a few days after you'll get the phone call from the underwriter. Or in the meantime, you can call this number and ask the question, because one's got nothing to do with the other. That's the correct answer, but I can't say because I'm not in the insurance business.
It's still the hoops we have to jump through.
Yeah. Because again, for flood, it's NFIP. National Flood Insurance Plan.
My issue is my flooding wasn't nearly as severe as others. I only had a couple inches in, but enough to do damage.
Of course.
So I think that windstorm might offer assistance in that case. I have heard that they have. Again, it's hearsay, so I don't know.
Call them and ask them.
All right.
Because, and again, call your insurance agent. How much am I going to get? Or you're not going to get anything because so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm still waiting.
Oh, you're still waiting for the insurance company to get back to you? Here's the other part, I'm glad you brought that up. Most insurance checks are being mailed out anywhere from 5 to 7 weeks after the claim. That puts us very close to that October 24 deadline. Please make sure that you're not waiting for checks and not registering and applying. You may very well get your entire sums of money from NFIP or people that you know, but please make sure that they register and apply with the SBA, just in case the sums of money come after the expiration of the deadline. Because if the deadline expires, you'll have to write in a note saying why you couldn't make it into the Disaster Recovery Center, why you didn't apply for the loan, things along those lines. Okay, so make sure that you do so. What other questions do we have? So let me wrap it up real quick. Put it all together, all kinds of moving parts here. If you have NFIP and you've got a policy with them and they're going to pay you in full, you don't need FEMA and SBA. FEMA is a short-term grants-based program. Return people back to safe, sanitary, secure condition. SBA does the heavy lifting. $40,000 for renters, for personal property, $40,000 for homeowners' personal property, $200,000 for the actual structure for the home, $2 million for private nonprofits, $2 million for businesses of all sizes. No fees, no points, no closing costs, no prepayment penalty. First payment a year from now. Start to finish funding, 30 days. Dedicated case manager at the very end that'll talk to you. Mitigation, refinance, relocation. Ask the underwriter when they call you to see if you potentially qualify. And then a case manager at the very end for modification, draws, and everything else. If we turn the applicant down at the time of the decision making, we'll refer you back to FEMA and their other needs assistance program for the third pot of money to open up. That's pretty much the gist of the program. Thanks for having me today. 24th of October.
For SBAs?
Yes, sir, FEMA and SBA.
Okay, so when we're applying, are we applying for a line of credit, or do we have to know how much we're needing?
For damages, you mean? The dollars and cents that you need will be established when you meet with the verifier, because they're the ones who are going to assess the damages that you had. I had $30,000 worth of personal property with no insurance. I had $170,000 against my personal home with only $80,000 worth of insurance that's going to cover it. That's the paperwork that goes to Dallas, where they say, okay, he had no insurance here, so he's within the full dollar limit, so he's got 30. But against the home, what he's looking for is about 90. Can $120,000 be cash flowed by his total income for the year 2016, 2017, so on and so forth? So the establishment of values is when the inspector comes out to seize you.
So
because no one knows.
You don't need to know an amount.
That's
that
correct.
You need when you apply. You
That's
just need
correct.
to apply and let the process proceed.
That's correct. Verified losses. And the important function for that time frame is, you might think your damages are X. The underwriter might say, but the verifier might say it's Y. You might be pleasantly surprised how much damages there were because you didn't consider X, Y, and Z in the totality of it because you didn't even check it. So that's why the person comes out and verifies the loss, and then you can borrow mitigation money against it, and then you can potentially refinance your home if the numbers make sense, or relocation. So the verifier coming out and seeing the applicant is a big step towards recovery. Huge. So keep that appointment. Anybody else? No? I guess not. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for being here.
Which part?
That be sure to file or do whatever by a certain date.
October 24th.
October 24th.
That's correct.
Now that's for the SBA.
Everybody, FEMA and SBA, and everybody involved.
Oh, okay.
Everybody involved.
October 12th. Here, I thought it was that date that when you do file, they give you a date, and mine was November of 17.
If you haven't filed, you've got to file by the 24th of October.